Hello everyone and welcome back to the Elizabethan era. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most influential people to have ever existed in the world of theater. And that person is who is winking at you right now, the one and only William Shakespeare. So a little bit about Mr. Shakespeare. He was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon, and he married a woman by the name of Anne Hathaway. Not the Anne Hathaway that you might be thinking of, a different Anne Hathaway. They had 3 children, Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. But Hamnet did pass away when he was 11 from an illness. Shakespeare was a very successful actor and leading poet in a group called the Chamberlain's Men. And he then began to write his own works, and he wrote 36 plays, 154 sonnets, and a lot of poems. Now, this is all we have record of. He very well could have written more, but since this was so long ago, this is what we have record of today. And one more fact, he did become the joint owner of the Globe Theatre in 1599, and he passed away on April 23rd, 1616, which actually was his 52nd birthday. So a lot of people, when they think about William Shakespeare, they think, oh my gosh, that language is way over my head. It's all these these and thous, and yes, you are correct if you are reading the original text that he wrote, but Shakespeare is actually a lot more simpler to understand than you might think. So he did write 400 years ago, and he also wrote in what is called iambic pentameter, and this was a structure that he created based on the rhythm of a heartbeat, which is ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And this rhyming pattern, this rhythm pattern that he created is called iambic pentameter. And if you stick with theater in high school, you will learn all about iambic pentameter. But for today, I just want you to know that it was a rhythm that he used when he was writing his works. He did not use Old English. Scholars call what he wrote in Modern English. And the words that he used don't have the same meaning as they did or as they do today. So he may have used one word and it meant something completely different back then than it does today. And he did invent over 2,000 words, which I think is incredible. So some of the words that he would use in his writing include alas, hence, perchance, wilt, thee, thou, thy, anon, whence, I, morrow, beseech, and my personal favorite, the ultimate insult of this time period in Shakespeare's time was to bite your thumb. So if you said bite your thumb, that was the ultimate insult during this time period. So Shakespeare used a lot of style in his writing. So we're going to start with his use of similes. So a simile is when you are to compare two things, and he liked to do this a lot. He also liked to use metaphors where you are comparing something to something else. Soliloquies, which is where an actor is talking to themselves on stage. A prologue, which is basically giving you a preview of what you're about to read or see. He used a lot of asides, which is when an actor is on stage and they are talking to the audience, but the other actors on stage cannot hear them. He used a lot of imagery, which is where you paint a picture with your words, and you really use words that bring your story to life in a very vivid way. He also used a lot of symbolism and foreshadowing, which is where you are kind of giving away what's going to happen next. So what Shakespeare wrote were 37 plays and 154 sonnets. He wrote comedies, tragedies, and histories. Revenge was a very popular theme in his plays. And he had a lot of his characters fall in love at first sight. the most iconic being Romeo and Juliet. So the kind of characters that Shakespeare liked to use in his works included kings and queens that represented royalty, common people, just your average everyday Joe, because Shakespeare had his roots with common people. He did not start out super wealthy, and so he really had an appreciation for just the common man. He liked to use fools and clowns as a source of entertainment. And fairies, witches, and magic were also very popular in his plays, along with lovers and warriors, which can be seen in Romeo and Juliet. So Shakespeare's theater was called the Globe Theater, and there were actually two. The first one burned down in 1613, and then the second was built in the exact same spot and was eventually ripped down. There's speculation that the first one caught on fire because it had a straw roof, and they did not have fancy stage lighting during this time period. So if a gust of wind caught a lantern that was lit to provide lighting, and your roof is made of hay, you can put two and two together that you think that might be a little bit of a fire hazard. The globe was shaped like a wooden O, and so sometimes you will hear people refer to the globe as the wooden O, or even Shakespeare referred to it as the wooden O. The stage was a thrust stage, and we have not yet learned about the different types of stages, but we will very soon. And the Globe Theater was a thrust stage because you had your stage that extended out, and then you had an audience in the front and on both sides. So you had audience on three sides. And if you came to watch the play, you could either pay to have a seat up in the top tiers, or if you were kind of tight on money but you still wanted to attend the plays, you could pay a penny and you could stand in the yard that was located in front of the stage. And these people were called the groundlings or the penny stinkers. And I think it's really interesting how theater and performances in general have changed, because now if you were to go see a show, a performance, a concert, where are the most expensive seats? They are right up on the stage. Your ground floor seats are super expensive, and the cheaper seats are further back, which is completely flipped from what it was in this time period. So just kind of interesting to think about. So special box seats did cost more. You had to be wealthy. So some things about the Globe Theater. Myself again. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. So the Globe Theater, and there's a couple pictures here that I've included. As you can see, there's the tiered seats, and then the stage, and then all of those people standing in front would have been groundlings. So they had a 1,500 audience capacity, so up to 1,500 people could see the show. There was no heating. So the plays were performed in the summer months because at a certain point in the year, it would just get too cold to be performing, and nobody would be able to come and withstand that kind of temperature in the winter months. And the way that they would advertise, because no social media existed during this time period, they would fly different colored flags so that no matter where you were in the city, you could look up and see a theater, and the different colored flags would tell you what kind of play was going on there at that time. So if it was a black flag waving, that meant that they were showing a tragedy. If it was a white flag, that meant it was going to be a comedic play. And if it was a red flag, that meant it was a history play. So here's another picture of the globe. So as you can see, how they referenced in the video that we watched a couple days ago, you can see the heavens if you look up here. And then you've got all of this ornate detail here. This is where your actors would have entered and exited. And then you've got all this area down here, which would have been your yard. And then your tiered box seats, which would have been the more expensive seats. Oh, real quick. I don't know if you can see it that well, but right here, this square would have been a trapdoor that they would use for disappearances and reappearances throughout the course of the show. Here's a picture of the modern day Globe Theatre. So if you are to go to London and you have the privilege of visiting, I highly recommend it. This is still standing today, and there are still shows that are shown there. And here is Shakespeare's home, which is now currently a museum. All right, that is going to conclude our notes for today. I will see you soon.